Okay, thank you so much for joining us here today. And it's been approximately a month since the Guardian released those incredibly revealing John Doe documents. And we've called in every way possible to try and have investigations because it's clear to us that ethical lapses occurred and that laws potentially were broken. The magnitude of these disclosures simply cannot go uninvestigated. It is essential, with the explosive nature of what we learned in those documents, that there is an investigation that takes place. But at the end of the day, the lack of transparency is exactly what the Republicans envisioned when they dismantled our campaign finance system, did away with John Doe's just for politicians and corruption. And there's no doubt that those in power want more secretive money in our campaigns. As Wisconsinites, we will fight with everything we have to restore clean and open government here in Wisconsin. So today I stand with my colleagues, all of whom have signed a document, as well as other of our colleagues, to call on the Wisconsin Ethics Commission to investigate the actions of the governor. It's unimaginable to me with these disclosures that they would not be doing this on their own, but we certainly want to encourage them to move forward because the evidence is just so powerful. It's so clear when you have somebody sign a check saying, because the governor asked, we gave corporate donations which were illegal at the time. We'll also be calling for changes in our campaign finance law that our Representative Taylor will be talking about to change this. But this is no longer the state that I grew up in. That was a shining example of clean, open, and transparent government. In fact, it reaches the point that Matt Rothschild, who heads one of these clean government groups, the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, put out a guest editorial that appeared Monday, and where his conclusion, the last line was, where we are today in Wisconsin, we are now essentially open for bribery. Let me repeat it. Here's what he exactly said. But that's where we are today in Wisconsin, which is now open for bribery. That is his conclusion, that he's paid every day to look at trying to maintain clean, open, and transparent government. The appearance of corruption is absolutely alarming, and I would hope that the Ethics Commission would take up our call and investigate this. With that having been said, I'm going to call my good colleague, Representative Wachs, who has researched very closely the issues that the Ethics Commission should be taking on.
Good morning. While Citizens United versus FEC struck down a federal ban on independent corporate political expenditures, statutes banning the direct and candidate-controlled corporate donations are permissible. As such, Wisconsin Statute Section 11.38 stands, and direct or indirect corporate donations to Wisconsin candidates are prohibited. In the present case, the ban outlined by Wisconsin Statute Section 11.38 prohibiting candidates from directly or indirectly accepting corporate donations for their campaigns was violated by Scott Walker and his committee, Friends of Scott Walker, and his corporate donors. The Guardian documents make it clear that Scott Walker directed and controlled the 501c4 group, Wisconsin Club for Growth. This group served the dual function of being a holding tank for personally solicited corporate donations, as well as a clearinghouse for advertising purchased by the Scott Walker re-election campaign. We believe these activities violate Wisconsin Statute Section 11.38 and Wisconsin election campaign ethics codes as well. These corporate donations were not independently made, and their use was personally directed by the Walker campaign. Additionally, we believe the Walker administration and the legislative Republicans violated, at a bare minimum, the spirit of the law, if not the law itself, in a quid pro quo scheme. In close proximity to massive corporate donations, it appears that the Republicans changed mining laws and civil immunity laws. We believe this conduct to be unethical and illegal. Finally, we believe Governor Walker's thinly veiled threat aimed at Wisconsin DAs who continue to investigate his administration violates Wisconsin ethics codes and may constitute conduct prohibited under Wisconsin Statute Section 943.30 sub 4. For these reasons, we are calling upon the Wisconsin Ethics Commission to investigate. We need clean government in Wisconsin. This is the only system for ethics complaint left us at this time. They've changed this system. Now we're calling upon this new system that the Republicans imposed on us. We're calling on them to investigate this corruption.
Next, Representative Chris Taylor is going to talk about what the next steps are needed for the legislature to take. Thank you, Representative Taylor. I appreciate all your good work.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. You know, this session, Republicans went way beyond merely updating our campaign finance statutes. They basically gutted our clean elections laws to legalize the corruption that we see in these Guardian documents. They opened the floodgates to more secret, unlimited corporate money into our elections and gutted our reporting and disclosure laws. Republicans want more corporate money and less disclosure in our elections, which is absolutely contrary to what the people of the state of Wisconsin want. Our Clean Elections Act does what the people in this state want us to do. They want us to get rid of this inundation of corporate cash in our elections and require more disclosure, more sunshine on who is funding these ads that we are seeing. The public has a right to know. Our vision for an election system is one that is clean and transparent, rather than the GOP vision, which is as much secret, unlimited corporate money as possible. Our Clean Elections Act prohibits candidates from coordinating with, raising, and funneling corporate money to secret dark money groups, which is exactly what Governor Walker did in these recall elections that are subject of the Guardian documents. Our bill restores our ethics code, which bans state officials from raising money for outside groups. Our bill will ban candidates from colluding with and coordinating with these outside groups that say they're independent. Well, you're not independent if you are taking your direction from candidates. You're not independent if you're colluding with and coordinating with candidates. Our bill will ban candidates from having their own separate PACs or their own segregated accounts, which result in candidates basically having no contribution limits. This will also make sure candidates aren't circumventing Wisconsin's long-standing ban on candidates accepting corporate money. Our bill will increase disclosure requirements, shedding light on these shadowy groups, and we're going to be adopting, under our proposal, federal disclosure standards on electioneering communications. These standards have been upheld repeatedly by the U.S. Supreme Court, and they've been adopted by states like Colorado and Delaware. Our Republican colleagues have created a rigged election system, which allows more secret corporate money in our elections and less public disclosure. This type of system sets the stage for corruption, which is what we saw in these Guardian documents, and a pay-for-play scheme where corporations who give big, fat checks get big, fat favors. This is not the system the people of our state want. And it certainly is not a system that the people of our state deserve. It looks like Republicans rewrote laws to cover their own backs rather than adopting laws that really protect the backs of the people of the state of Wisconsin. Democrats are actually listening to the people of this state. Our Clean Elections Bill creates a campaign finance system that's accountable, that's transparent, that gets this corporate cash out of our elections as much as we can. This is the direction that our state should be going. Thank you.
Thank you. And then to close it off, our Assistant Leader, Representative Katrina Shanklin.
Well, thanks again for being here. The bottom line is this. Democrats have stood here over and over and over again and pointed out that the bills Republicans have been pushing have really opened Wisconsin to corruption. But at this point, thanks to the investigative reporting by The Guardian, we've seen that Republicans have corrupted Wisconsin. We have seen the appearance of corruption in so many different pay-to-play schemes. We've also seen Republicans rewrite the laws to benefit themselves instead of benefiting their constituents, whether it's exempting themselves from John Doe, blasting open the door to corporate money and dark money in politics, and making sure that the nonpartisan Government Accountability Board benefits them by having their own partisan appointees on them. It is more important and more urgent than ever that the Wisconsin Ethics Commission investigate the minimal appearance of corruption. Wisconsin isn't just open for corruption anymore. We think that Republicans have corrupted it, and it's time that this be investigated. So at this time, we'd like to take any questions you may have.
A few weeks ago, you sent the same request to DA Ozan. Have you heard back from him?
No, we've not heard back from him, and obviously with the DA, it'd be a criminal investigation. The Ethics Commission has a different set of parameters that they can follow, and we hope that they will.
You said you're drafting a Clean Elections Act. Do you have an LRB? Is it done?
No, we don't have an LRB.
Representative Barca, can you respond to a video that was released yesterday showing a former Democratic operative, Scott Fogel, talking about busing in people for some kind of purpose?
I really can't comment other than the fact that I know that O'Keefe, who put this together, has previously been discredited and have proven to doctored videos. Beyond that, we're here to talk about what's going on in the state of Wisconsin and how terrible that is and how deeply concerned we are. But on that national scene, I'm sure there'll be a lot of information will come out following that.
Do you have any concerns, though, that that's, there's been this whole discussion about voter fraud, and it seems like he's describing, that we don't have a full context, but he seems to be describing things that Republicans have cited when they have passed voter ID law, for example. I think they're trying to sort of combat this idea that Democratic groups or liberal groups are busing people to different, precincts and stuff. I mean, is that something that you're aware of happening in the state?
Look, I mean, no, I'm not, and it just came out in the last 24 hours. We really don't have enough information to comment on that. But what is clear is 13,000 pages of documents that have now been out there for a month, that people have started to dissect. It's very clear that something stinks in Wisconsin, that we have a situation in this state that cries out for an investigation, and things that previously had not been investigated. Were illegal corporate donations received and requested? Was there pay-to-play that's going on? That's what we're prepared to talk about today. I'd be happy to talk further about these things as I have a chance to really review that. But at this point, I really haven't even seen the video in any great detail, other than just a little excerpt that was on CNN that I saw last night. But what's going on in Wisconsin is our obligation. We live in this state, we work in this state, and it just disturbs me to no end. There is nothing probably that disturbs me anymore than the lack of clean and open government that exists here anymore. By design, that the Republicans passed bill after bill after bill in this session. And when I bring it up, when I even tell Republican groups about this, their first reaction is, that can't be, Peter. I said, let me send you the bills. Take a look at it, because that is what happened. And as people begin to understand it, they're troubled enormously, as we should be. This is not a state like Illinois. I live on the border. You got 2 previous governors in prison there. You have indictments that take place on a regular basis in that state. But what is going on in this state is starting to resemble that state. And when you read, I mean, when I pick up the paper, I look on Monday and think about this. Just think about those words that you've got one of the clean government groups saying, where we are today in Wisconsin is we're now open for bribery. That's his conclusion. I would hope that would trouble everybody enormously. And we see proof of it. The ADCC doesn't even bother to file a campaign report. There's all kinds of things going on. RAC did not file their last campaign report. Hardly reported. I don't think in the history since we have required reporting, any group has so brazenly not done that. But it's item after item. And I credit a lot of you have been reporting these, which is terrific. But what is going on in this state is putrid. It's unbelievable. It's unimaginable for all of us that grew up in this state that we would ever reach this point. And that's where we're at. And you pick up the paper, and if this doesn't trouble you, when you hear these clean government groups and what they're saying about what's going on in this state, then I don't know where we can go. But it just troubles all of us enormously. And I just hope that our Ethics Commission will fulfill their obligation and analyze this and commence an investigation. Of course, we all know now, if it's going to be a major investigation, they got to go before the Joint Finance Committee to request funds, which in and of itself is unbelievable.
Do you believe that the Elections Commission will succeed where John Doe failed?
Well, they have their own, they can do their own investigation. John Doe is on a different topic. Now we have credible evidence where you have somebody that signed a check that said, because Scott Walker asked. But there's plenty of other things that were disclosed as well. That's just the one where you've got such a clear exhibit that it just cries out to at least call this guy, find out if he's making it up, which I can't imagine anybody making something like that up, and to follow through. But we're calling on them to do their jobs. Now, I know it's harder than when you had a group of retired judges who who were almost all Republican, that then called for a criminal investigation. But in this case, you got a split board now. But I would hope that all of them, Democrat and Republican alike, would be so troubled by what they have, what has been disclosed, that they would follow through and begin their own efforts to investigate the ethics laws of the state and whether or not they were broken. Because we believe that it's highly, highly likely that they were. In fact, it's hard to imagine that they were not.
About your new bill, are you going to be focusing in on the issue of coordination specifically?
Yes.
Like I know
Right.
California did a bill recently.
Yep. Many states have. California has, Delaware has a bill that talks about coordination. Yes, so that is a big piece, is trying to prohibit this coordination that we saw. And that's so important because there are candidate campaign limits for a reason. Candidates aren't supposed to be able to get around those by coordinating with these outside groups and funneling their donors to these outside groups that can take secret unlimited money. That's really where you see this danger of corruption come in. And so that's very, very important. But the other piece that's really important is disclosure. We have seriously, these Republicans have seriously weakened our once very strong disclosure laws. And so we looked at what the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld in multiple cases, which is the Federal Electioneering Communications Law that sets forth a framework for when you have to disclose and when you have to report. So really we should be going in that direction, not the direction that the Republicans went in with trying to keep things more secret and trying to hide this stuff from the public. What are they hiding? Why shouldn't the public see who these donors are?
You do this for Representative Watts.
Oh.
Yes. You guys keep saying that this is new information, but all the records that the Guardian published came from the investigation, which is all stuff that the prosecutors had, that presumably the judges and the justices who the Wisconsin Supreme Court justices had access to, the U.S. Supreme Court had access to. So I'm not understanding how this is new information that would somehow change the calculation that at least the Wisconsin Supreme Court said, which was that this wasn't coordination, that this was not a campaign committee. I mean, that's what they concluded. How could the ethics committee reopen that when the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
Well, here's the deal. The special prosecutor talked about the fact that he was unaware of the quid pro quo appearances during the course of that investigation. And we got to remember that this investigation was short-lived. I think what we got to keep our eye on the ball here. Governor Walker's reelection committee set up and funneled money into a group that was alleged to be independent. He's directing money into that group, and that group is being used as a clearinghouse for advertising and the like, to make sure that the advertising for the reelection is consistent and effective. So I think now in retrospect, it's a perfect time for people to take a look at the macro picture here. What we have is a group of individuals that are skirting the law or breaking the law and then changing the law after the fact to try to reflect and conform to the conduct that they already did. Now that is not consistent with Wisconsin clean government, not at all. And so I call upon this ethics committee to take a hard look at this.
Let me respond. I'm Representative Kessler. The interesting thing was the Supreme Court shut down that investigation. They didn't even allow that to be proceeded. And if you recollect that the special prosecutor, Mr. Schmitz, ended up saying he hadn't even seen some of the things that the Guardian had published. So this is new, and this was not called to the attention of the people who were in charge of prosecuting this.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for being here.
Thank you.